So let's do Longlegs, which is a film that people either have heard a lot of buzz about, but if you haven't, it's this new independent horror film from a director called Osgood Perkins, who is the son of actually Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in Psycho. And it's got a lot of good buzz around it. It's got Nicolas Cage in it in a supporting role. And I was able to see it actually quite a few weeks ago now, I think when you were in Corfu, and then James was able to see it last week when I was away. And I saw it 3 weeks ago, and ever since then I've been wanting to sort of get here and talk about it. So just a little describer on the plot. So Longlegs is a horror film set in the early 90s. Yeah, I know, because there's a repeated use of a picture of Bill Clinton on the wall. So it's early mid 90s. In some very bleak looking.
Oregon?
It looks like. Oh, is it Oregon? I thought it could be like Arkansas, but Oregon. Okay. And we get a brief snippet at the beginning in the 70s, but mainly takes place in the mid-90s. We follow FBI agent Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe from It Follows. A very dour and sour, taut-faced Micah Monroe in this, who is an FBI agent with a very canny ability to sort of tell a hunch and get an idea of where a lead might be heading in a case. It's almost supernatural. It's kind of hinted at, but she has this uncanny ability to, I said canny earlier, I meant uncanny ability to lean into something. And she, at the beginning, she's working on a case and she proves herself in the field. And therefore she's brought into another case, which is overseen by Blair Underwood. And this case is about Longlegs. And there have been a series of murder-suicides throughout the state. Proves herself in the field, and then she's brought into this other case, which is overseen by Blair Underwood, which is to do with these series of murders by this person who names himself simply as Longlegs. And she kind of gets sucked into the mystery of that. That's all I'm going to say for the plot for now, because it's obviously a mystery and the way it kind of reveals itself. Before I get to you, James, and what you think about it, I just want to say that I saw this at a press screening at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And actually, if anyone follows us on the Discord, I posted a picture of the irony of the leg room in this screening for this movie called Longlegs from a tall man such as myself. There was one seat that there's just a pillar in front of the seat. What am I going to do with that?
You like when you go to the theatre and it's restricted viewing. You know, you're like, why are these theatre tickets so cheap? That's what
it's a wall.
No Longlegs allowed in your seat.
I didn't sit in that seat, but I found that quite funny. So anyway, I saw this at 10 o'clock in the morning, this press screening, and this film really got to me, and I came out into the bright sunshine, and I felt so cold. And I was like, oh God! Because there was no one at the press screening I knew, so I hadn't spoken to anyone. And I had to call up my girlfriend, and I was like, "Hi, yeah, I'm fine. I just need to like talk to someone and shake this film off of me." And then I go about my day. Everything's fine. Go around the sunshine. It's all good. And then, like a good horror film does, I get into bed that night, and it all comes back.
Fantastic.
And I actually had to roll over to Anna and go, "Hey, I think I'm a bit scared, actually." Some of this film is very, very unsettling. I will go on to my thoughts, but my overall thing is, although slightly narratively flawed in some areas, I think for me, deeply unsettling, deeply bleak, deeply uncomfortable, and it bloody got to me, James.
So my screening was really very different to yours, and we got a great screening invitation to go and see it at the Prince Charles on a weeknight, and the Prince Charles is kind of wonderfully creepy in a way. It's got low ceilings and dark corners, and it's got that old school movie theatre style. And I'd already had I was a pint of lager because I saw my friend at the pub, but then I had another one in my seat and I saw it with a friend, and it was this sort of lots of media professionals there, all very excited to see this film called Longlegs, and that was a really great scenario to watch it. I thought Longlegs was really good. I really, really enjoyed my time with it, and it was scary.
It is scary.
I think that film is really good at invading your personal space. Right. It's shot on it's interesting having watched Kinds of Kindness and other Yorgos Lanthimos films recently, because that is a wide angle lens that has loads of profile, and it's a really present lens profile, whereas this has no distortion, and it really is very good at making you feel like you're right there in the room, in the house. When something is really close to you, it really gets in your face. When someone is standing right there, I feel personally attacked. When Michael Monroe's character is walking through through a scene with a gun, the camera is probably only about 30 or 40 centimeters from her face. And that feeling is just really, really well done. Nicolas Cage gets wonderfully, completely lost in this role. I genuinely almost think if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known. And not because I don't like Nicolas Cage, more that he's just brilliantly strange and weird and unsettling.
It completely understands how to use Cage. And it's the right amount of Cage.
It's just fantastic. It's a perfect Nicolas Cage film. He's unrecognizable with this prosthetic. He's like a tormented member of Motley Crue.
I would say he looks like an albino Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, with this like really strange bum chin.
Yeah.
And like you do see him close, but you never really get a real good sense of what he looks like till later.
He's in the film. That character is in the film more than I anticipated.
Me too.
Yes.
And there's a really, as you said, it's really dark. It's very unsettling. Michael Monroe is very good at just playing traumatized and shocked and scared. There's a really great sense of loneliness, which is captured in the film, which really runs throughout. And just towards what this film builds to, there's one specific shot towards the end, which was a blink and you miss it moment, which just really captured my imagination, which was not a jump scare per se, but the presence of that idea was so much scarier. And that moment just really stuck with me. It got under my fingernails, got into my brain, and I just thought that was scary, brilliant, uncomfortable, really, really good fun.
It's so funny you say that because if I was trying to describe this film to someone, it's like you have horror films that are that jump out and scare you. Get that quite. This is a film that stares at you for like 2 hours, and that's how it feels. I mean, there are jump scares, and there's some fantastic jump scares in this. And I will say there are moments in this that I'm like, that's pure nightmare fuel. That's in my nightmares now. There's a couple of shots that when I think about it, when I saw A Quiet Place last night, they showed the trailer for Longlegs, and I had to look away because I thought, I can't see this before bed again. It's that feeling of being stared down. And what I found interesting is that I recently caught up with The First Omen. You reviewed The First Omen a couple of months ago.
Surprisingly solid.
Really surprisingly solid horror film. So I went and watched it with some of my horror mates, and we all agreed, surprisingly solid, like really good.
Yeah.
See, if you haven't watched The First Omen yet. But what I noticed in that's the difference between like a studio horror film and an independent horror film.
Totally.
Because, The First Omen isn't scary throughout. It is kind of quiet bang. And then it's like, you can relax. And then now we go into the scary moment, and then you can relax. Whereas this film with Longlegs, it reminds me that there was a video film essay by this account. I don't know if they make content anymore, called Every Frame a Painting. And it was about comedy. And it was about Edgar Wright. And it was pointing out that Edgar Wright movies are funny visually
Always.
All the time.
Yeah.
Even when the dialogue is not happening, it's trying to make something, it's trying to make every frame, every inch of the movie funny.
And if you didn't notice it then, you will on the second watching.
Exactly. And and they compared it with, like, let's say, like the opening of Bridesmaids, which is always like, a helicopter shot with a soundtrack over a city. It's fairly generic. And that's what I was thinking of on the flip side with Longlegs, with horror. It's like, compared to something like The First Omen, Longlegs is... Every scene is unsettling. It's unsettling and atmospheric.
I hated every environment. I didn't feel. I've never felt comfortable, even in like what are considered safe spaces, like an FBI office. I always felt like there's something in the corner. It's always shot through doors and everything. You notice how the camera was often moving forward, asking you to look in. Similar to It Follows, always wanted you to look on the horizon for anything following you there. I
think it's and I think I mentioned at the start that I think it's for me, I think it slightly narratively slips towards the end. There's a couple of things that I'm like, I think it's not silly as such. I'm thinking, okay, I can tell you're trying to get this to a point. Yeah. But in the same way that, like, I wouldn't measure a comedy on necessarily the watertightness of its plot, I would measure it on how funny and fun it is.
Yeah.
This is a horror film. It is really creepy and scary, and that's what matters.
It's a really great inversion in the opening scene, which... usually scary scenes take place in darkness at night, the absence of light, things in the shadows. And this first scene is set in the middle of the day in a white-out snow environment, which is such a contrast to how we're usually presented with scary things. But actually it works really well because you're overloaded with light and information, and anything that isn't the snow, like a person or a black dot or something there, it's immediately recognizable. And that's such a wonderful contrast to what you usually get, and it totally delivered.
I think that there's... a lot of the film will remind people of Silence of the Lambs and Seven. And I think when I found it slightly slipping for me towards the end, I felt like I was maybe watching like reheated leftovers of that. But I think maybe I'm being a little bit unkind, but it's just for me, I kind of... Maybe I was just sick of being oppressed by the atmosphere. But what I will say is if you take something like The Silence of the Lambs, and with the 90s setting, that's very much there, Silence of the Lambs mixed with Seven, and I would say mixed with the pacing and the atmosphere of The Witch, it's kind of what you get with Longlegs. And it also has, I mean, I won't say it because it would be spoiling, but there are so many like horror tropes and horror genre subgenres that it kind of enters into them. Like, oh yeah, we got that in it now. Okay, and we're gonna do, we're gonna go there, and we're gonna.
Separately, we got a really great email from the PR team who were like, who invited us to the screening. They were like, oh guys, like we are sending out a cake that comes in 2 different parts. Would you like to receive the cake? And I remember sending it to George. I was like, fuck yeah, I want that cake. And we're horrified. It hasn't come yet, but it will probably come tomorrow. Either way, stay tuned on our social media. I think it's coming the day this comes out, so stay tuned. We will do like an Instagram story where we show off this what must be a horrifying cake.
What's it going to taste like?
I got no. There's so many things that come to my mind over what this cake could look like, but I am looking forward to seeing it. That's quite a fun marketing thing to do as well.
Totally. But I think it's Longlegs is a really, really refreshing surprise. If you are a horror film fan, I think you should definitely see it. And my flatmate is. I came home straight away and I said, "Oh, you really need to see Longlegs." It gets you from the beginning. I think it's got a great opening. It's very atmospheric, very heavy, but I think it's very exciting. And I know I've mentioned the minor quibbles with like the narrative, but ultimately I've come away with it thinking, oh, that was, I'd love to watch Oscar Perkins's next horror film. He's made quite a few films in this kind of territory, but I think this is the one that's got the main sort of
I think I'm going to see
traction.
it. Sorry, I think I'm going to see it again with Horror Amy when it's out, because I saw it. I didn't overhype it for her. I was like, I've seen it. Would like to see it again. You will like it. Let me know, and I'll come with you.
But it's
it's interestingly shot as well. Like the flashback sequences are in 4:3, like a really rounded present like film stock.
Like
with the rounded
Kodak,
corners.
home
and then the stuff set in the 90s is like super anamorphic wide. But like as I said, it's not. There's no present lens. So you're really there. It's very. I'd love to. They don't have the information yet, but I assume when it's out, they'll tell us more about how it was shot and what was used, and I'll report back.
And I think some of the words I haven't used that I should do is it's sinister.
Yeah.
And it's this sense of dread. Every time they would be like, okay, we're going to go into this building, I'd be like, oh, don't do that, because there's going to be something really fucking horrible inside.
And not too ridiculous. I wasn't eye-rolling that much. It just had, it made sense to me, and I went,
within the laws of the show.
I'm still scared, and the scares don't feel cheap. Thumbs up. Horror thumbs up.
A thumbs up. I think absolutely. If you're looking for a horror movie, this is it. Longlegs.
As always, guys, if you have seen Longlegs and wanted to write in with your reviews to the show, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Send them in to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com and we will hear your thoughts.